This year, the LGBTQIA community is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Riot, a historic riot against the police that marked the start of the gay rights movement. Stonewall Inn was a haven for many lesbians, gay men, drag queens, transgender nonconforming individuals, people all of whom which were criminalized by the laws at the time and made it illegal for many of them to exist freely in public spaces. Police raids are common at gay establishments. Officers enjoyed harassing us, arresting us, jailing us for being in violation of homophobic laws. At a time when it wasn't safe to be out, police forced folks to come out of the closet. Because arrest records were public, many lost their jobs and were disowned by their families, simply for living their authentic lives in their communities at a gay bar.
Imagine never feeling safe, always worried your whole livelihood was at risk every time you went to meet your friends for a drink at a windowless bar. Imagine feeling like your identity was a crime, knowing once the police came that the best you could hope for was that they wouldn't be able to arrest all of you that night. So at the Stonewall Inn, late one night in June of 1969, the police raided the bar and began to arrest patrons. But after years of humiliating abuse, the crowd decided enough was enough and fought back, resisting arrest from police and protesting the injustices they had long suffered. Pride is celebrated in June to commemorate this riot against the police. There were no rainbows, just an indignant group of oppressed people rising up against homophobic state violence. It took decades to get homophobic laws overturned in the U.S. to stop this harassment, all while the police served as a tool to enforce an often unjust and unfair system. That system consists of federal, state, and local governments that control police, as well as funding them with our tax dollars. Police are paid with public money, which makes us, the public, financially liable for their actions, meaning we end up paying for their misconduct.
In Chicago, there is a history of the mayor's office shielding the CPD from being held accountable for instances of misconduct, including murder, torture, and brutality. The 2018 indictment of CPD officer Jason Van Dyke for the second-degree murder of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald last year was initially ruled as justified, until the dashcam video of the 16 shots fired was released the day after Rahm Emanuel narrowly won his 2015 election. Without watching the video, City Council approved a $5 million settlement to Laquan's family.
Now, Chicagoans have spent over $1 billion since 2010 on settlements, judgments, and legal expenses regarding the CPD.
This figure is the highest in the entire country, so much so that the city has financed almost half of that amount, essentially doubling how much taxpayers will end up paying to settle the debt over time. Per capita, Chicagoans have the most expensive police department in the country when it comes to payouts and budget. CPD already takes up 39.6% of Chicago's annual operating budget at $1.46 billion a year. That's close to half your tax dollars.
So how do you reform the country's most expensive police force? In Chicago, the mayor becomes a key player in these decisions.
On April 2nd, Chicagoans can vote between Lori Lightfoot and Toni Preckwinkle, two candidates who may seem similar, but have staunchly different records, especially when it comes to policing.
On March 13th of this year, No Cop Academy activists flooded City Hall to protest the vote for a $95 million contract with AECOM to build a brand new facility.
AECOM is a firm that has a history of going over budget with public projects, yet the contract was approved despite public dissent. That same day, in a public safety forum, Lori Lightfoot suggested converting 38 schools shuttered by Rahm's administration into training facilities. She used a comparison to a $750 million facility in New York as an example of what she believes our city needs. Both candidates want police reform, but Lightfoot had an opportunity to directly bring changes to the department when Rahm appointed her as president of the Chicago Police Board in 2015. As president, she failed to hold CPD officer Dante Servin accountable for the 2012 murder of 22-year-old Rekia Boyd, refusing to fire him, thereby allowing him to keep his pension after he resigned just 2 days before his hearing, over 4 years after he shot Rekia. Activists pressured Lightfoot for an entire year to discipline Servin. Her refusal will cost taxpayers $90,000 a year. When activists confronted Lightfoot at board meetings, she not only failed to listen, instead she had them removed by police. She was known for adjourning meetings so as not to interact with community members, and there are multiple reports that recount Lightfoot disrespecting the families of victims of police brutality and using threats to have them removed by force. There is a movement for a civilian police accountability council to allow the public to have direct oversight of the police. In 2016, Lori Lightfoot called this an idea of the lunatic fringe. Is that how our next mayor should consider propositions that can hold the police accountable? The first openly gay mayor of Chicago should not wait on a platform of more policing. That would betray the foundation of our collective movement.
Lori Lightfoot's established history on police cannot be pinkwashed by the notion that she represents us as queer people simply by being one of us. I'm queer and I'm against Lori Lightfoot.
I'm a queer person of color, and I'm here to hold Lori Lightfoot accountable.
I'm queer and I'm here to hold Lori Lightfoot accountable.